to the world's leading innovation platform. This is the FileMaker platform. I'm your guest speaker. No, actually, I'm their main speaker. Everyone, Richard Carlton here. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I'm here with all sorts of other people who are actually very cool as well. Actually, a lot of good stuff coming up. And what's important for me to do is welcome all of you. This is a two-way interaction. It's like if I was in your living room or you were in my living room. That might be strange, but imagine you could transport yourself here and ask questions in real time. Upcoming broadcast schedule. Let me take a look at, if I go to fmtraining.tv, I'm going to move the little box out of the way here. This is our upcoming broadcast schedule. Now, what I want to do is talk about some important things. So, first off, today is another day. We're continuing the security conversation. It'll be day 3 of 3 days about security. Beginning, kind of intermediate, advanced. It's not every little thing that you can learn about security, but there's major takeaways you can have in the security. A bunch of you were going to get sick and throw up because I was moving the camera the other day on Monday. Having multiple machines for testing the security is a major takeaway. A lot of the security you just can't learn by me waving my hands. I can give you some guidance, I can give you a direction, but the way you really learn it is by doing it. That's kind of the problem with even the Claris FileMaker certification test, is that just studying it is not enough to generally pass it. You actually have to do the work.
Upcoming schedule. So today we've got the security options for external script activation with the wonderful John Hogel. On Thursday, tomorrow we have reliable PDF preview and FileMaker for Windows. So if you are a Windows person, we promise we are actually going to be talking to you tomorrow. On Friday, we have Dropbox. So if you want to know how does Dropbox work with FileMaker, John is back to discuss it.
I'm going to minimize that. I'm trying to find the Hogomatic. Where is Hogel? Hogel, is your face there?
It should be, yes, sir.
There he goes. He's there. He's talking right there. There's a smiley face. So there's John Hogel, one of the engineers that worked for me for a number of years. John is a pretty awesome guy, pretty talented. He's up in Oregon. He does a lot of coaching. He is one of the sharper API people we have at the company. He does API integration. That's why he's here a little bit today, talking about stuff today, but also on Friday with the Dropbox stuff. So today's conversation is about security, and it's about the evolution, really, it's an evolution of FileMaker, the platform. As you tell FileMaker Pro or Server or Go to run a script for you, you instruct it to run a script. We talked about this yesterday with extended privileges, right? You can tell it we can restrict, like, for example, a URL protocol. You can restrict outside things calling scripts. That protects those scripts from being run. If you enable the scripts to being run, once you've done that, then you can pass different options, right? So we've kind of talked about this like a year ago or more, but it's relevant. A lot of you are still kind of maybe didn't see that, aren't aware of that topic, so we're going to cover that right now. But it's the options you have for telling FileMaker to run the script. So for example, if I say right now, Hogel, I want a Diet Coke. So I'm calling the Hogel computer, and I'm calling a script called Get Me a Diet Coke. And John's going to ask, what questions would you want to know if I say, get me a Diet Coke? What are you going to ask me, John, right now?
Would you like it in a glass or in the can?
Right. Well, in the case of FileMaker's Hogel, if this was FileMaker over here getting me a Diet Coke, it'd say, well, would you like me to drop everything now and get it? Because I was in the middle of, like, balancing my checkbook, right? Or would you like me to finish my checkbook, balancing my checkbook, then get you the Diet Coke? Or would you like me to get the Diet Coke right now, then resume doing the checkbook? I mean, there's like 4 or 5 options about how it interacts, right? And so that's what we're talking about today. So, John, I'm going to have you flip to your screen, and I'm going to go full screen. And then Margaret's going to also post the link here to the sample file for today. John, if you want to turn off your camera and turn on your screen.
Yes, sorry, I did the one share button, but not the second share button.
All right, great. So right here is a sample file that we did for everyone last year. We talk about this, right? And so, Hogel, do you want to walk us through this? Because you ran into problems with this recently. So in this case, we are doing the JavaScript, right? Having JavaScript call back to FileMaker and activating, but it doesn't have to be JavaScript. It can be the insert from URL, right? So you want to talk about this a little bit?
Correct. So previously what FileMaker did is whenever you called a script using a open URL protocol, it would stop the script that it was currently running, and then run the script you told it to call with the open URL, and then go back to what it was doing before. And that was default behavior. That was the only thing it could do when you ran an open URL.
This is as of 19.0. I'm being very specific here, right? As of
19.0, that was the case.
That was the case.
With 19.1.2, it changed, and what happened instead is it would actually do what this is, this option 0 here. And what that means is what it would do is it would instead finish running the current script that was running and then run whatever the open URL called.
Okay. So it finished the first script. And so what Claris has done is that basically what they're doing is they're taking this technique here and they're applying it to lots of processes, external processes that you can call and activate a FileMaker script externally. Does that make sense, right? So the most common ones right now are if you're within a Webviewer, like a calendar, you're doing a calendar thing, right? Like, you have I don't know if we even have a calendar around here, but we probably pop up a calendar somewhere. But the FM
starting point.
You have the starting point lying around somewhere?
Yeah, I have it open actually.
Okay. Drag it over here. That would be great. So yeah, so if we go to the calendar and we view the calendar, right? So we go ahead and do that. The part where we, say for example, if it loads.
Yeah, I don't know why it's hanging.
Is it a hosted solution? Let's look. Okay. So if we actually create an event and add an event here, right? So we do this event, right? Is it dead? Is it unhappy? There we go. So create a new task for me. Let's wash the cat. Very dangerous activity. Okay. Wash the cat. That's fine. Okay, go ahead and do that. That's great. Carefully. That's right. Very good. So we say continue. So what we're going to go to continue, but when we press this button, didn't we exit? I believe we exit FileMaker at that point and we come back to starting point, right? Isn't that how that works? Because we're actually in a layout in a starting point.
This here is in a layout here in starting point, no longer in a Webviewer.
So this right here was a button inside the Webviewer. I believe that to be the case.
Yes.
It is a button.
That's correct.
And this has to call. If you go back over this other sample file, I don't know if we can do that or not, it has to call, it decides how it's going to interrupt the FileMaker process. So we're saying, hey, we want to add a process, so we're going to perform this command right here. And the question is, what option are we going to pass? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, right? And so that's really what this conversation is about, is that it's getting to the point now where we can decide how we want to interact with FileMaker, right? In terms of letting it continue or canceling out what it's already doing. Very, very, very important. So if we're back over here, we press the button, it's going to run this command, and then based upon what my engineers have set, and I don't know off the top of my head how they set this, but it's going to run a script which will go to a layout, pop this up, allow us to interact, and then once we're done here, we hit continue, it's going to post it right here. Now, if we actually grab this and drag and drop and move it, that executed another command over here, and then it updated back over here, right? So this is happening real time. Now, we ran into a problem. Let's walk through these options. What are these options? You want to walk through them in detail, what these options are, John?
Sure. So first off, it's option 0. So what happens here is, in detail, it talks about down here. So the currently running script, after it is completed, the queued script then gets ran in order. Which means, for example, we have the start counter here, and what this does is it's going to count from 1 to 60. And then we have the submit button. It's going to run a different script. So if I just type in test here, right, and I hit start counter, this will count all the way to 60, even after I press the submit button, before it moves the data here into this field over here. So let's see that happen. Start counter here, I hit submit. You see it's still counting, goes to 60, and until I dismiss this dialog, this field is still blank. As soon as I hit OK, it's going to finish running that script. So I'm going to hit OK, and you see the data transfer.
So this is the wait for the. So if I say get me a Diet Coke, this is where I say go ahead and finish what you're doing first, then bring me a Diet Coke. Is that what this is?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, great. So what's
This
option?
adds it to the bottom of my to-do list.
It's the bottom of your. So this it really, yeah, we should say, add to bottom of to-do list, but Claire's calls it continue. So option 1, yes, wait for completion before she. Yeah. So or finish what you're doing and then bring me a Diet Coke. Yes, David. David Angel is correct. So what's option 2?
Option 2, option 1 because we start with 0.
Oh, that's right. We start with 0. Yes.
So option 1 is halt, and that is drop everything immediately, get the Diet Coke right now. So if I start this counter again, it'll start counting as soon as I hit the submit button. The counter will stop dead in its tracks. It will never continue, and the field will move over. The data will move over to here. So if I hit this, submit, oh, it didn't do it. There it goes. Sorry, I was in the wrong spot there. So it stops here at 47. Never made it to 60. The dialog never showed up. Nothing happened. As soon as I hit submit, it moved it right over here. This counter is done. It's not going to go up to 60 anymore. The dialog won't show up. It has canceled everything it was previously done.
Yeah, this clears your to-do list, the FileMaker's to-do script list, right? And it executes immediately. Okay. So what's option? I guess our third option, which is actually option 2, right?
Right. This is
okay, David Angel,
right.
I think we've got a conflict there with what David says. So David says, David, I think that's incorrect, David. So David says, do it now, then continue with what you were doing. That's not what happened, right? It halted
no, it immediately stops everything that you were doing to never return to it again.
Okay, yeah. And now option 2, I think, is what David's talking about, which is it's going to do it immediately and then do the other stuff, or how's that work? Why don't you walk me through what's number 2?
So option 2 is a little bit more confusing, but it's an exit script. So it will stop the script that called the open URL, but if there's other scripts in the stack, they will continue to run.
So it's a halt the current one, run mine, right? Or does it wait until the end again still? Does it wait? Do you know if it waits till the end? Current pause script runs as exited. If the current FileMaker script was called by it, then returns the calling script until no more script.
The end script is fine. It's run at the end, so it's still at the bottom of the to-do list.
So this one is at the end of to-do list. This is at the end of a to-do list. This is halt everything and do it now. Okay. Do I have that correct?
Yeah. So really, how it works is this is end of the to-do list. This one here is if I have bounce the checkbook, wash the cat, get the Diet Coke, you say, you know what, forget about bouncing the checkbook, don't do it anymore. Wash the cat, then give me the Diet Coke. Yeah.
Okay, so it's exit the current one, and if there's more than one in the queue, it will continue the other scripts in the queue, right?
Correct.
And then it runs our script. Okay, got it. Okay, cool.
So then we jump down to option 3.
A pause FileMaker script is resumed. So the computer has to be in a pause state. So otherwise, pause is resumed after the resumed script is completed. Run script is run. Got it. So this kind of like it's an interesting one. So it, for those of you who love to do pauses in the middle of your action, it resumes it, then we run. Okay, cool.
Yeah. For
David, are we good on? David, are we good on this? Because I know that I think 0 and 1 are pretty easy. 2 is a little squirrely. 3 isn't too bad. What's 4? What's number 4 here?
4 is the pause script remains paused.
Okay.
And then if it's resumed and completed, then the script is run. So it adds it to the end of the
adds it to
script.
the queue. It adds it to the end of the queue of scripts to run, but it doesn't actually kick the pause forward.
Script into active.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure some of you have used this option before. I don't know if I've ever used number 3 or 4, right? Because I to the point anymore where I don't really. Pausing scripts was the way you did stuff back in FileMaker 2. With modern versions of FileMaker, it's almost kind of not really necessary. So, Cool, David. It's awful quiet there. Everyone got quiet. Margaret, you there? Did we lose David, or is he mad at me? What happened with David?
I'm here. I don't see questions or commentary really.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So maybe
Everyone alive out there? Y'all breathing?
I don't. Yeah, David's still here. Yeah. So yeah. So then what's number 5? What's number 5?
So option 5 is the old default behavior. It suspends the script that is running, does what you told it to, and then continues that script. So in this example, if I put in our test here and I run the counter, it will stop to submit, and then it'll continue running the counter until the counter's done. So we'll stop here. I'll hit submit here. It's entered, and it should resumes the next script step. It didn't resume, but it should have resumed.
Try it again.
Pause, resume script. We'll finish. Yeah.
Oh, you're paused at the top right now. See the pause state? You're in a pause state. Look at the top.
I am. This is the wrong button to run with this. Oh, and then I hit submit. Is that how it's supposed to run? How did he?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened here with this. Continue.
This particular one isn't behaving the way I expected it to.
Go ahead and hit cancel and clear everything out. Okay. So just run this again. Let's make sure it's going to run cleanly. Let's go ahead and run that. Okay, that's.
So it stops and it pauses here at 5.
Why is it? Oh, okay.
I think it was running what this.
That's
did.
running the wrong one. We probably got to fix that. Yeah. So there you go. Oh, lost connection. You're back. All right, we're talking to you, David, and you disappeared. So number 5 is a little confusing, but it's the historically old behavior. You want to look at that and see what it's doing, or you don't want to reverse engineer it now. I guess you could. I don't see which.
I can.
Yeah, do it real quick. I will entertain questions from other people. Okay, there was a question yesterday from Labo 404. Whenever I try with ear can select a solution. Okay, so ear, that's in Kyle's. I don't know what Kyle meant, but let me just simply say this: if you encrypt, if you ever use encryption as a general rule, there will be a performance penalty. Claris has specified the performance penalty for ear is anywhere between 5 and 15%. So if it took 100 seconds to do something, you're going to drop, 5, 10, 15% in overall performance when you enable ear. Ear encrypts the actual file. It doesn't encrypt over the wire, right? Over the wire. So, but the computer does have to decrypt it, then re-encrypt it when it's saving into the file. So there is some work there it has to do. But the rest of that is all pretty accurate. Kyle has that pretty well underhand. Organ Dean was there. No, you can run ear locally. Once you ear a file, it's eared. It's pretty much period, right? It's just the way it is. Organ Dean. So the file can be local. The ear file can be hosted. The whole point of ear mostly was the fact that if someone could get the file off the server, they couldn't really get into the file, if that makes sense. So, because a lot of people, you get on the machine, you put a USB drive in the computer, it's like Mission Impossible, the second or third one, or whatever, when they were trying to get a USB drive in the server and do this whole thing. And so you put the USB drive in there, you get a copy of the file off. If all you have is SSL security, then the file's kind of unencrypted. But with ear, in its resting state, encryption at rest, EAR, when the file's at a resting state, the file itself is encrypted. So that allows someone, if someone takes a copy of it, they're not going to be able to do much with it without the security code. It's theoretically unbreakable. I think the National Security Agency for the United States could break it if they thought that you were a terrorist and you had relevant data in there. I think they could get into it after, a deliberate, concerted attack against it. But outside of that, I think you're in pretty good shape. Okay, yeah. Ear, I don't know if it actually increases the side or more CPU. It's mostly a CPU issue. I think you could mostly, I don't think it's mostly an amount of data that's going. I think it's mostly a CPU issue because it has to decrypt it, decrypt the scrambling, and then put it back together, etc. But remember, ear is going to decrypt it, and then if you have SSL enabled, it's going to re-encrypt it again. So it decrypts the ear, and then before it sends it over the wire, you're going to get the SSL encryption. So it decrypts it and re-encrypts it. So it's different encryption on each way. So it's a lot going on, but it's the modern day that we live in. We don't really run around with unsecured files anymore. It's just kind of the way it is. It needs to be that way. All right. So John Hogle, how are we doing? I'm looking back over at you.
It's fixed.
Okay, it's fixed. So we're going to want to rev this file for everyone. So where do you want to pick up the conversation at?
We can start with test 3 if you want. I can go through those and with the pause scripts and demo that.
Go ahead and do that.
Okay. So this one here. So if I start this counter and then it's paused. So right now my script is paused. You can see up here it says script is paused. Has our continue cancel here. Mm-hmm. If I hit the submit button, it will resume this script. Our counter will go all the way up to 60, and then it'll move the data from test 3 over here. So it'll run this submit script and continue the script that's currently run, but it'll run this script after. It's still at the very end of the stack.
All right, go ahead and let's do that.
All right, so I hit submit, counter's going up, and then we have our data.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, so yeah, let's do the next one then. Yeah,
all right, so option 4, this is run after pause. So this one's a little bit different. If I run this, right, the script is paused. So now if I hit submit, nothing happens. Because really, this script is still added to the stack. It's just not going to run until I continue.
Until someone else or some other process hits continue, right?
Right. So if I hit continue now manually, this will count up and test 4 will move over.
Nice. Good demo. I like it when we fix stuff. It's great. All right, questions coming up. Margaret, how are we doing for air traffic control with questions?
I don't see any in YouTube or Twitch currently. And then we just have David is typing. 0 is the default option, question mark.
0 is the default option for 19.1.3 for OpenURL, 19.1.2 for the JavaScript function.
Yeah, so they started, once they realized this worked for JavaScript, they said, wow, we should use this other places too. And since we've already written the code for it, we'll just recycle the code, which is what they're doing. So yeah, pretty neat that they, because this is very much a developer-facing function, allows us to build, allows us to build better solutions, more awesomer, I mean, as I'm like talking like a 5-year-old, it's more awesome, man, more awesomer. Right, if that's as a word, right? It's a developer-facing function. I'm sure this came from Todd Geist talking to the engineering, or Jeremy Brown, or someone talking to engineering and saying, "Hey, we could really make much better shit if you guys give us the tools," right? And so once again, that's kind of this battle between give the developers the tools so we can make great solutions, as opposed to we hate developers and we don't want to support them, right? Which there's kind of two different mental tracks in the world that we have. So yeah, 0 is the option. You want to do the last one, and then
yeah, so this is the old default. So this is 19.0 and before. This is what used to happen. So in this case, if I start the counter, it'll start counting up. When I hit submit, the data will move over immediately, and then the rest of the scripts in the stack will continue to run. So if I hit start counter here and then I hit submit, you see it already moved over. The counter is back to running.
Okay, I don't understand the difference between that and number 0.
0, it does it at the end.
Could do 0 again.
So if I start the counter here and I hit submit, it won't move the data until this is done. So I hit OK, now it's moved. So in this case, it happens at the end of all current running scripts. In this case, it happens immediately, right away, right now, and then everything else continues to run.
I have a question. Okay. That because this is potentially pretty dangerous, because if you this one here is where it queues it at the end, right? This goes at the end. So
option 5, it goes right now.
Right now, but option 0, I'm sorry, is. It just it
current default, and it goes at the very end. It
queues it to the end, which makes sense. It's the safest thing to do, because all the other scripts have finished, and now it's going to tack on this other script, right? But down here with this one, it's going to stop the other script running from wherever it's at. It's going to do stuff, and then it's going to allow it to resume. You could, by running this in a forcibly, like if I tell you, hey, go get me a Diet Coke right the hell now, and then you can resume. But what if you get up, grab the Diet Coke, you come back to the desk, you could spill the Diet Coke on your checkbook, right? For those of you who are wondering, we're talking about this kind of hypothetical Hogle, like, Hogle, go get me a drink, a Diet Coke, right? and Hogle gets up, goes, gets a drink, and does he get it? Does he finish doing his other chores, and then he gets me a Diet Coke, or does he get it immediately? And if he gets it immediately, what if he spills it on the paperwork? What if this changes the context? What if this goes to a different layout, a different sort state, modifies the world of FileMaker, then finishes it, and then the previous one resumes, right? It can completely screw things up, right? Number 5.
You'll run into a lot of errors. It's very interesting. So it goes into the conversation about our robot, and I don't know how deep you want to go into that.
We can go into that. We got time. Talk about if you want to show the robot. Well, you can't show it with a password, so I don't know how you want to do that. But
I'd have to stop sharing my screen briefly, but I could hide them.
Yeah, do that real quick. Because this is a really interesting exercise. It's a natural progression. So go to that layout, hide the passwords. So we have we talked about robot processes. It's a robot scheduler. I'm going to minimize him briefly here. So we have a robot scheduler. It's a Mac, happens to be Mac. It's actually used to be a Mac. Now it's a Amazon instance. It has a FileMaker file, and all it does is it loops through this file set of records to see each record is a process we might run in our CRM system, right? And so every 5 minutes it loops through and says, do any of these need to be run? And if it needs to run them, then it uses a open URL command to initiate it, right? Because it's cleaner than trying to say, run this script, where you've identified it and the files are linked together. The whole goal was not to have the files relationally connected as external sources. So that way the robot doesn't forcibly open all these other files. Like, if you have dependencies of multiple files in a solution, you open one file, it's going to potentially open up all the other files, even if they're hidden. And there can be complications with that. I wanted all the other files to be closed unless we wanted to run a script. So the way you do that, you lose that dependency, is you execute and open or run it from a URL protocol, right? So you want to show this because this is very different than the JavaScript. But everything here is the same. It's the same stuff. So
why does it do that?
So here,
this is not what we want.
Is it running? Did you hide the stuff?
It ran itself because I didn't tell it to not do that.
That's fine. Let it go. How long will it take?
Well, if it's just doing lemur, it should be done pretty soon.
Okay, so we reopened the file, and the file went, oh, there's stuff I might have to do. Run, right? So hopefully it finishes real quick. So,
all right, let me cancel the on-timer script so that doesn't happen again.
Okay,
I apologize. I didn't do that in advance.
Okay.
Okay. So, jumping back into it, for example, this script here, this 12, this is the one that just ran. This is our email repository. It goes in and it does it. So the way that this robot works is we tell it to open URL, and it has a big long string of code in here.
I'm going to go and zoom in a little bit. What's that?
Yeah. I said it doesn't look pretty, but that's how FileMaker had me code it. So,
all right. So walk us through this. What does this say here? What are we doing?
All right. So the first thing it does is it makes sure that we have a username for the file.
Okay.
If we do, it grabs the beginning of the file URL, which should be it's the first 6 digits. I can't show them to you right now because of the way that I'm showing you this.
That's fine.
And then it inserts the username and password into there, so that way we didn't have to hard code our username and passwords because of the way that you have to use FileMaker's URLs.
Yep.
And then it does the @ The @ symbol is saying where are you trying to log in, and then it's going to grab the rest of the URL besides those 6 digits. So this right, and then the URL with the length -6, giving us the rest of the URL besides the first 6 that we grabbed right here. And then this question mark script equals, when you're using OpenURL, the question mark here, it stands for post, and what it's doing is it's saying once you get to the URL, read this data, and if it has information that you can do something with, please do it. And so we have script equals, I just broke that, This meaning, please run a FileMaker script, and then we have the script name, which we have written in referencing the field. We're replacing all of our spaces for the script names with %20s because it's URL. It has to be formatted very specific. And here you have your options, right? So this is and option equals 5. Originally, this wasn't in here, and I will get into why that was an issue in a moment. So now we're passing our option 5, and then the parameter that's saying it's activated by the robot.
Okay.
So that was a lot that happens there.
But go back to the mode real quick. So let's walk through it on the list real quick. Just
in the list here.
Yeah, the list. Hit cancel and get us back to the list.
Come on. Thank you.
So if you scroll over here, this is where it's grabbing, and those first 6 characters are the 6 characters that are over here. So if you wonder about the 6, this is the 6.
Right here. This
we're trying to get rid of that. So we have just the file name. We put the username, password in here. We put the script in here. So we roll all that together in that calculation, right? We escape out the spaces if we have spaces in the file name. I always tell people when doing file names, don't use spaces, but not everyone does that. I built this file, so it's underscore.
And the script name, too.
Oh, and we have to skip out
spaces.
Yeah. And you have to escape out the spaces. And so then we tell it to execute this option 5, which means run this script when you're out of other stuff to do at the end of your to-do list.
No, run it immediately.
Run immediately. Ooh,
yeah.
Is that a good idea?
Here's the reason we do it.
Ooh.
This is why when we upgraded to FileMaker before, because they kind of stealth released this on us, it blew up the robot for a few days because it was killing itself, and here's why. So the way that this works is it works in a loop, as we talked about.
Okay.
So it starts with the first record.
Okay.
And it loops, and it's open URL, and I can go in here, and then it updates the next runtime. So this is to determine whether or not it needs to run.
Okay.
And then if it does need to run, then we do this open URL.
Okay.
If it adds this to the bottom of the stack, we have this code in here to make sure that we get back here and close all the open files. It will open the file, not run the script, and then it'll immediately close the file. And so the scripts never get run.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, so cool.
That's all of these down here, which is a big confusing mess that just says close any windows that aren't this script scheduler window.
Okay. Interesting. So so the whole idea with the robot, if you can move that just briefly sideways a little bit, it's running a loop. It's running through each one, evaluating it, evaluating it. So every 5 minutes it does this kind of really stupid kind of loop-de-loop process. And that way it's very simple, right? And it runs the ones it needs to run, and then tells them when it gets to one to run it immediately, right? I guess is what you're saying. Yes.
Yes. When it gets to one, it should run. It runs immediately. Okay.
So David Angel has more questions. Let's spend a couple minutes talking about this. He says all this at user by user level when he's talking about robots. So the robot has a robot security level, I guess. I'm not totally clear on David's question, right? That part of it in Discord, if you're looking at that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the user by user level is in reference to.
Basically, the robot we consider to be admin level kind of robot, and it has carte blanche authority to do whatever the hell it wants because the programmers programmed it, so we assume it's running at basically master administrative level. Next one is the script. The scripts runs at the client. Yes, because back to robot conversation. If you run a lot of scripts on PSOS or SAS, you're going to crash your FileMaker, at least the part of FileMaker server that runs SAS and runs PSOS. You will crash it. And then you'll have to go in the command line on the server and resuscitate it if you can. And if you can't, you'll have to facilitate a total server restart, which pisses off the people using the server. Or you have to do it after hours when you should be at home enjoying your life, your personal life, but you're working instead. So if this robot here sits next to the FileMaker server. So in Amazon, there's a FileMaker server on the rack, probably some sort of slice of wedge on the rack, and probably on the rack right next to it is what we try to do is make sure as close as possible. So the robot here is talking to a machine right next to it. So the speed back and forth should be pretty fast, right? That's the idea. And so would it be faster if it ran actually on the server? Yeah, but the risk and the danger is higher. If the robot dies over here for some reason, is the server just sees it as a random client, right? And it just does a graceful disconnect. So, oh, the client died, gracefully disconnect and move on. No different than anyone else on an iPhone taking a call, getting disconnected, right? Pretty straightforward. Okay, so I kind of covered this, but I guess I didn't explain it well. So I want you to explain to David, why do you use OpenURL instead of perform script?
Okay, so there's a couple reasons. The big reason is that this file is independent. It doesn't have any relations to any other file. If I'm using perform script, I have to go up into my file and I go into my manage and I do my external data sources, and then I have all these files in here that I'm performing scripts from. We didn't want that. We didn't want it to be connected to any of them. And so the way we built it was to open the URL instead of using perform script to prevent that. The other reason is because we have different usernames and passwords for files on different servers. And if you're using perform script, you need to authenticate, which is a pop-up dialog asking you to log in. And we wanted that to happen automatically, so we used OpenURL to prevent that from causing an error in this robot so it can run independently.
Yeah, we are in the process of rolling out an Active Directory solution, right? And so that would be less of an issue if you had Active Directory already running, but we don't have it running. And so the necessary administrative security codes between the files tend to vary a little bit depending upon once again, the security varies depending upon what's locked behind the door. Is it like we said, $15 million? That would be really great, but it's not. But what if it's very important information, right? Or as opposed to maybe something that's not as important. Like if someone has a tech support question, how critically crisis oriented is that? Yeah, well, we don't want it out there publicly, but we're not going to have armed guards, with Humvees and tanks protecting it, right? Unnecessary, right? Because, there shouldn't be anything that brutally confidential in there, right? So that makes sense, David. We're trying to answer your questions, but it's a process, right?
From Twitch, I don't know what options he's referring to. From Suevid, these options are not available for scripts called from other scripts, perform script and perform script on server.
That is correct.
But when you post a question mark script request using OpenURL, the options are available.
That is correct.
Yeah, so here's the thing, right? So I'm going to cut back to my screen so I can wave my hands a little bit right here. So this is really important. So FileMaker is a single, if I explain this, most of you all get this, right? FileMaker is a single threaded process at the end of the day. It can only, at the client level, it really does one thing at a time. It will run a script for you at a time. It will allow you to control the screen at one. I'm not talking about the server where it's doing 20, 50, 100 people at once. I'm talking about you, an individual. We're talking about pro, because at the end of the day, FileMaker server doesn't run scripts, okay? And then once again, this is more advanced conversations, conceptual. FileMaker server, when it runs scripts, it actually has its own little hidden version of FileMaker Pro that it boots up and it runs. And Claris doesn't call it that, but that's what it is. Because Claris would not have rebuilt an entire scripting system to run the scripts on the server. Remember, humans are generally lazy. They'll take a path of least resistance. So if they already have FileMaker Pro, they can chop the head off of it, make it headless, have it load as a process on FileMaker server, then server calls it. That's what it's doing. So understand that really anything that runs scripts in FileMaker is single-threaded. If you are on a machine, say like I'm on this computer over here, and I want to run a script, I'm going to take my mouse and push a button or click in a field or do some sort of script trigger, but I have to interact with the computer and it triggers a script. While the script is running, there is no other user interaction. Okay, notwithstanding a pause or anything weird like that. While the script's running, I can do nothing. I get a little coffee cup, a little beach ball spinning. I can't do anything. Therefore, as a single user, if a script is already running, I can't go click this and click this and click this and click. I can't stack scripts as a single. This is kind of a very big training moment, and it's something as a trainer I have to kind of find a way of articulating. So if FileMaker is busy and I'm in FileMaker Pro, I cannot ask for additional scripts to run as a user. I can't press this button and this button and this button and this button because it's not going to let me do anything until the script that's running finishes. So it does one thing and it stops. It does one thing and it stops. Now the one thing you run might trip 5 other things, but at the end of the day, FileMaker has to be done before it allows me to request the next thing. When you're in a web viewer in the calendar, go to the calendar real quick. If you can go to calendar for me. Hogle?
Yep, I'm doing it right now. Actually, I think I closed it because I opened this file.
So this is a very, I know a lot of you are advanced and you understand this kind of, you understand it kind of almost at a physical level, like a subconscious level, but articulating is very important. So when I am in here doing stuff inside this is a web viewer. This is totally separate than actually this part of it up here. This part up here is in FileMaker. This part down here is a web viewer. I can actually, both of these are totally independent. And as a result, if this is running a script, the web viewer doesn't give a shit. It doesn't care. If the web viewer says, hey, I want to run another script, I'm going to tell FileMaker to run a script. And you're like, well, you can't tell it to do that. It's already busy. It doesn't give a shit. The web viewer is a browser. The world of browsers don't care. It says, run it anyway. I don't care. Run it. And so FileMaker has to have ability to, literally like air traffic control, understand that suddenly it can be bombarded with multiple requests from a single client to run scripts. And because of that, it has to know how to triage those requests. Oh, okay, so it's like air traffic control. I'm a pilot, right? So we're all landing, and they say, helicopter 0 Foxtrot Mike, cleared to land runway 28 right, okay? And I'm number 3 behind 2 other Cessnas, so I'm in third in line to land behind 2 other people, right? But then if I get on the radio and say, Hayward Tower, 0 Foxtrot Mike declaring an emergency fire on board, they're going to take those other 2 aircraft and cancel their clearance to land, and they're going to tell me to do whatever the hell I need to do to get the aircraft on the ground because I'm on fire. So that's an option we have. We have cancel everyone else out and cut in line. And so they have to be able to handle that. It's a very, very, very important thing that you have the option to do that. But as a FileMaker person, you have to think, should I be interrupting stuff? Should I not be interrupting stuff? And a lot of times you'll build something, and then you're testing it along the way. You're like, oh, that didn't work. And some sort of unforeseen something happens. And so with these options, there's actually 6 options. There's 0 through 5. So there's 6 options here. They give us the flexibility to solve the problem by giving us an unlimited number of, 6 different variations to solve it. So does that make sense, everyone? So if you're in FileMaker Pro or in Go or frankly in WebDirect and you're inside the FileMaker interface, a script is running, you cannot queue other scripts to run by pressing a mouse or by interacting with it. So when you're going perform script or activating a script, you cannot interfere with the stack. The exception to the rule is that if you have a pause, then you can tell a button to cancel the previous thing on the pause or whatever. But generally, unless the script is paused, as a user, you cannot interfere with that. This is a really big thing. I think kind of intuitively, once you've been doing FileMaker for a while, you kind of understand it, but you probably never heard it articulated that way. And it's a very important. And this is why when engineers at Claris talk to the developers, they have to they understand the way FileMaker works like that. They don't really know what the developer wants, but they're thinking about, well, FileMaker does this way, and the developer wants this. So how do we take the stuff that the developers ask for, and how do we wire it into the product? And sometimes they do a great job, sometimes not so much. This is one of those times where they give us a lot of options. I like that. Questions, comments, Margaret?
We have a follow-up from the same guy on Twitch. I did not catch where the perimeter is set in the open URL request. Where is the documentation for that, or could you show me?
There is documentation on Claris's website, but also it goes file name, parameter, and then options.
Okay, stop. You don't have to go to. Okay, I had this problem with Margaret yesterday. Just go to FileMaker. Go to FileMaker. Okay, go to the
And go
menu.
to the help.
Go to the help at the top of the screen. You don't have to go to anywhere else. You just go to the help at the top of the screen right there. So FileMaker Help. There is everything you want right there. Click that.
It's going to open on my other screen because I have Discord open.
That's fine. Bring that over here. And then here's the help. So this is the help window. You get it out of FileMaker Pro. Then all you have to do is I would type what? Insert up here. I would say insert from URL or insert.
Open URL.
Open URL. Not insert. Insert's, yeah, different. Open URL. I think that's, yep, there you go. Try that.
Should be this one. Yep, this is it.
So here's all the documentation right here, right? And it talks about the parameter, right?
Name, parameter, option.
So let's go ahead and go down. Do they have any samples there, examples? Kind of.
Yeah, they have a ton at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, here we go. So here's where it's going to tell FileMaker to run on that's an IP6, v whatever. And then there's the file. Run the file. Run this script, but it doesn't specify an option. So what does it do if you tell it to run and you don't specify the option? What do you get? You get option zero. Right?
0.
And then let's see, run the script, set a parameter. Is that the option?
3?
That's option 3, which is whichever one, right? So this is all in here. It's all in here. And so what we're trying to do is expose you to the fact that if you're calling a script from open URL or from the Java transfer back, you have these options. Are the options even on here? If you scroll down 0 through 5, they're probably.
They will tell you. Where does it tell you?
It's in here. I know it's
right
somewhere.
here.
Oh,
Options for handling your script. So you have to follow this link,
Click that.
and then it gives you one right here.
There you go. So that's all the stuff we did. Right, we're trying to simplify it for you with an example file, but there you go. Should you use 19 instead of FMP standalone, or okay? So why don't you talk about the robot? I'm not sure David's question. But
the answer is we could. The robot was written before FMP 19 came out, so we didn't specify version when we did our.
That command. Okay, David, I wasn't following you. Yes. Yeah, I personally wrote the robot, the first cut of it, back in FileMaker 14 or 15 or something, way back, 13, 12, I don't know. It's since 11. And I wrote it, and then as RCC got bigger, I kind of handed off the babysitting and the programming of that to one of the staff. And it's been John. What reason John's here, he's in the middle of it. So what happened is, the legacy code still worked, but then we hit 19.1.3, the default behavior changed. Right, and so things were breaking, and the robot was broken. We couldn't figure out why our automatic processes were all falling over, and it turned out they had threaded this feature, which originally was that JavaScript interacting with the JavaScript, the Webviewer. They added it to this open URL because it was so awesome, and everyone gave it really good marks, so they thought they would add it in over here as well. So, yeah.
Another thing about that is that it didn't give us any errors because it didn't break the code that ran. It just changed the behavior. What I mean by that is because it was closing out those windows. So as far as FileMaker knew, everything was running perfectly the way it was supposed to. So if you have a solution that has legacy open URL codes and something is going wrong, these options might be something you want to look into and maybe change.
Yep. Questions along the way. So kind of an intermediate conversation today. Yeah. Margaret?
We got another one. Sorry. You can pause, again from the same guy, you can pause scripts, pop up a dialog with buttons, and run other scripts, but that is the extent of it as far as I know. Do you know what it is referring to? Okay, cool.
What is it? What is he referring to when you say it?
So he's talking about with regular perform script, you can't queue other scripts, kind of go into the conversation you were talking about.
Right.
And he's saying the only way that you could do that is if you were to pause a script and give people buttons that they can press at that point, then that you could add others to the queue, which is true. But you don't get all these options you do here with regular perform script.
Yeah, the perform script and pausing and resuming and all that stuff, that goes back. Listen, I started with FileMaker Pro 2 in 1990, 91, and Actually, 1990 was Pro 2, and so that's how far that goes back. That's really old. But with modern tech, really pausing stuff in flight is kind of very old school, very kind of goofy. Tawa says, it's above my current capabilities, but I'm here to learn, and I did. Thank you very much. Yeah, well, it's 2 o'clock. We're kind of trying to land the plane. For those of you wondering, no, I did not have a fire in the aircraft, but it's important to understand it's a good analogy, right? So you have the ability to declare an emergency with your FileMaker solution and tell your FileMaker to urgently run the script ahead of other things. Just keep in mind that the people behind you might get aggravated, or the scripts behind you might aggravate and not operate correctly, which is once again what happened to us, right? We assumed one behavior, they changed the program, and then suddenly that's broke. So at any rate, good stuff. We have a lot of great content. Tomorrow is going to be another epic day of learning. We're going to be talking about interactive containers and we've got a brand new starter solution or sample file for fixing using non-interactive containers on Windows and getting the thumbnails out for PDFs, which is really a big ask. I think it's something that we will build probably into the more advanced version of Starting Point later this year. But but once again, then of course there's that part of the conversation. There's the fact that 19.3.2 Claris basically makes interactive containers with PDFs very fat, very slow, very painful. And it's how they fixed it. So people are like, oh, it's fixed, it works great. Unless you have performance issues, then you're going to wonder why it's so painfully slow. So it's a conversation I think that's worthwhile having. All right, cool. Yeah, it's not a problem, Morgan Dean, about questions, right? I wasn't around as much. I was stuck in a place without a great headset. So if you have questions, comments, topics you want to see on the FileMaker platform, you want to learn something you don't know about, email us at support. Send an email to support@rcconsulting.com. Just say you watch the live streams and you have a question, and I will try to roll it in or thread it or find its way into a live stream. Okay? If it's super urgent, maybe we just call you on the phone and give you the answer, right? That kind of thing. So cool. All right, everyone. That's about it. Hogle, anything else you got?
So the updated sample file, I will rev it and send it to Margaret. Is she going to post a link in Discord, or how can people get access to that?
Well, the same link. We're not going to change the link.
Right. The link's going to be the same. You're right.
So in an hour? Is it already fixed now?
It's fixed. I just need to rev the numbers and send it to Margaret.
Yeah. So let's say for sure by tomorrow, which is August 19th. But if you really got a giant burning desire for the sample file, say in 60 minutes. Okay.
Yep, that's fair.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap, stands in, throws it left for Amendola, reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10, rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.